So this set of canvas-covered wagons steadily rolling along, pulled by a couple sets of oxen, in which we see their heads start to shake as the rain begins to pour down upon them. The pelting of the rain can also be heard echoing inside these wagons. And our view shifts to the front, where we see a large man with a heavy coat and wide-brimmed hat flick the reins, trying to encourage the oxen to move just a little bit faster. And then we shift once again towards the back as we go into what looks like almost like a Conestoga, if you can picture that. And inside this wagon, we see that it's laden full of barrels and crates. And amongst them, we see a figure lies curled up underneath a heavy gray woolen blanket. The large fellow driving this carriage turns around and looks down towards the prone figure and says, I'm sorry to disturb you, miss, but we're going to have to stop due to the weather. The oxen, I can hardly see a thing. Luckily, before the rain started, I noticed we're near a cave I've used used before to avoid the eyes of bandits. We could stop there for the night. The figure stirs and pulls back the blankets to reveal Sam. Tell us what your character looks like.
Yes. My character is a relatively tall for a female. She has long dark hair pulled back in a braid pretty much constantly. She wears more casual, kind of baggy clothing. And she has a scar across her face that's fairly faded, and decently tan skin, and is for the most part rare to smile.
Our view shifts once more, and we see the wagons have begun to pull up to a small hillside. And we do in fact see a small cave opening tucked behind jumbled boulders. We see these figures start to exit the wagons as they pull up alongside these boulders, and some of them bringing armfuls of supplies, while others unhook the ox and begin leading them into this cave. Eventually, a little while later, we see a warm, crackling fire with 4 figures gathered around it. A large man, our friend, and 2 women sitting closely huddled together. We see the hours begin to pass, with a stew being made and handed out, laughing and telling of stories amongst them until the night grows long and they retire around the fire with blankets and loved ones held close. Some hours later, Lara is awakened from her dreams when a scream rings out. Ah! She bolts upright to see dark figures rushing about the cave. The fire has been doused, and she makes out that the two women scrambling and beating back what looks like a pair of assailants. Lara stands up and launches herself forward, only to hear a sickening crunch, followed by her vision going dark. Next, we see a heavy evergreen forest. And as our view kind of shifts down amongst the trees, we see a small pond nestled amongst them. We see robins and blue jays fluttering about the treetops and finding their nests, some fighting each other, squabbling for what nuts and worms and other bits of food that they can find. A few deer grazing in the shade, minding their own business, and they're brought to attention when a small bit of rustling is heard amongst the pine needles that have fallen to the ground. As they look up, they see very quickly what has made such noise. They see a lone figure approaching the pond. What does this figure look like, Andrew?
They are wearing some battered but not out of keep leather armor, sturdy hiking boots. They have deep red, almost burgundy skin and long, thin ears and a curly mop of black hair. As Indigo Honeydew creeps forward, they have a pen and large leather book out as they sketch the scene before them and make notes of all the various creatures that they have happened upon.
We see Indigo, as he eyes this pond, grow more excited, and he rushes forward, his pen and notebook before him, and amongst the pages we can see the various different plant life and animals, and he flips through a couple pages, and we see that this section pertains particularly to what looks like aquatic plant life, amphibians, and a variety of fish. And as the day passes, we see his comings and goings in almost a quick time lapse. He moves about the pond, writing and drawing everything he can see in sight. We see him wade into the pond, pulling his legs up above his knees. And then it skips to another moment where we see him eyeing a large bullfrog that he holds in front of him, inspecting every little bit of it, pulling at its legs just to see the articulation of movement so he can more accurately draw it. And then it skips once again, and we see him holding a large stone cross-legged at the bottom of this pond. We see him looking back and forth as the fish swim before his eyes, some nipping at the dead skin along his arms, while others kind of look into his hair, kind of swimming among them. And then some time later, we see him pull himself out of the pond and begin to put a fire together. He sheds what bits of clothing he has, draping himself into a large cloak while he sets the rest out to dry. He pulls some dried bits of food from his pack and begins to gnaw on them. As the night slowly comes over, he flips through the pages of his drawings. And as the night falls, there's a shift in the air. The forest starts to grow unnaturally quiet. Indigo, being very acute and keen on his surroundings and the natural order of things, notices this and goes to douse the fire, aware that some kind of danger could be lurking nearby, when we see a large, shadowy humanoid form rise up behind him, and a large club comes crashing down on him, and he falls into darkness. Our next scene opens up, and I imagine it's kind of an aerial view shot to show a small town shrouded in night. Lampposts and torches alight along the cobbled streets. We see a pair of men stumbling down the street, their voices crooning out into the crisp night air. Drinks in hand, they turn a corner and run into another figure.
Oh, I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't mean to disturb you.
What does this figure look like, Brendan?
Sephel is a short, crooked old man. He would have been a nice 5'8", 5'9", were it not for his deteriorated, hunched form. He is a man in his 50s, appearing nearing his 60s, and age has not been kind to him. His skin is fraught with age spots and crow's feet on his eyes and veins popping out in places. He looks probably 10 years older than he actually is. His fingers and other appendages are elongated and very bony, and he's bald except for a thin curtain of gray hair that extends from the back and sides of his head down towards the neck, and he wears a deep black robe with vibrant purple filigree that kind of goes across the collar at the neck and down the sleeves and again at the cuffs.
Nice. After crashing into each other, Sephel moves around these men, insisting that he's all right, and hurriedly moves down the street, only occasionally glancing back to see if the men remain. Camera view kind of moves upward as we look back down upon the streets, and we watch him weave betwixt the buildings and alleys, ducking and darting between them, until he reaches the base of a tall hill, atop which sits a large stone building decorated with stained glass windows. He rushes upwards, pulling from his cloak a bound tome, and we see him utter a few words before he reaches the door and silently slips in. Next, we see rows of bookshelves and a dim light coming from between them as a shrouded lantern is held before Sephel's face. He moves deftly between the rows of books until he reaches another door. Our view turns upwards and we see restricted carved above it. With a soft jingle of keys, we see Sephel enter. And as he shuts the door, his eyes grow wide as he gazes at his prize. The rows of books chained to the tables that sit before him, their secret knowledge calling to him. He scurries forward, and we flash to another scene where we see him with 2 books open in front of him, his eyes glancing back and forth, trying to absorb as much as possible, hands flipping the pages as fast as he possibly can. And the hours pass. We see the sun's first rays starting to reach the top of the windows. Sephel quickly looks up, noticing it as it touches the edges of his pages. He rushes to return the books and begins to exit the premises. We see him relock the restricted doorway, hustle down the main hall, dampening his lantern, and we see him finally opening the front door. As he turns back to lock it in place once more, he notices a large shadow fall across him and the door. He goes to turn, reaching for his wand, when another crunch, and his vision fades also. From your various homes or places of venture, you have found yourselves attacked by a group of dark-clothed individuals. All you remember before quickly falling unconscious is piercing red eyes and gray skin that you could see just beyond the edges of their masks. Sometime later, you hear the soft swishing of cloth upon cloth, the occasional skittering of a stone upon the rock, and the echoing of it lasting just a few seconds beyond. As your eyes open and adjust to the deep darkness, you see in shades of gray or in deeper shades of dark for those of you that don't have dark vision. You see these humanoid forms walking on the ceiling. As your faculties start to come to you more and more, you feel the cold and hard bite of metal around your necks, ankles, and arms. The pull of your clothing on your flesh and the swaying of your body, you realize that you hang upside down on a long pole hefted on the shoulders of 2 of these dark-swathed creatures. Ahead of you, you hear the muffled talking of more of these creatures, but not enough to make out what is being said. Before you have too long to gather further information of your surroundings, you hear a grunt and another muffled voice, and a figure rushes forward, and one by one, you all feel that hard, sharp hit atop your heads, and you sink back into unconsciousness. At various points, you all reawaken again for small moments to see large, dim, glowing caverns filled with radiant crystals that refract light into amazing, colorful spectrums. Low-ceiling tunnels where your backs drag across the rough stone, and sometimes you're awoken by the soft brushing of something on your cheek, and you open your eyes to see large mushrooms, tubers, and other weird plants of different sizes, colors, and shapes that surround you and your captors. At other times, you barely awake to hear the whispers and chitterings and deep groans and growls of creatures traveling amongst the stones around you. After a time, your captors leave you be when you resurface to consciousness, and you realize why. You've entered into an enormous cave where the loud rushing sound of water can be heard ahead of you. The damp air reaches your nostrils, your eyes adjusting, as light, for the first time, and who knows how long, finally reaches you. You're set down on the ground and released from the pole before being quickly beaten and dragged up to a stand. The sharp crack, not crap, of a whip echoes around you, and the loud cry of a voice sounds, "Move!" The tug on your chains draws you forward along a pass that edges a deep chasm that falls hundreds of feet to your left. As you walk forward, you pass a small alcove and see two figures emerge. Tall, gray-skinned, red-eyed, white-haired individuals with long, sharp ears. It is then that you finally realize your situation. You've been captured by the drow. You look back into the cell and you see that you are not alone. You see 8 huddled forms farther in the darkness. Firstly, you notice a small, smoky, white-bearded and forked-mustached, gray-skinned figure wearing similar rags to your own. His eyes appear almost entirely white, but he looks up at you smiling. He sits squatting, probably about 10 feet or so away from you. One of the other figures you notice is a large and hairy light blue-furred individual that sits not too far from the first one. Their beast-like form looks exactly like those that you had passed before in the stalactite room. You see a red-haired and dirty female dwarf standing in another corner. She doesn't pay you much mind as she seems to be toying with her chains. A small purple gnome kneels not too far away from you, watching the retreating forms of the drow. A large hooped earring hangs from his right ear. You watch as he scuttles back and draws forth a pair of stones and tosses them into a circle, smiling with glee at the game he appears to be playing. Another large form stands in the back, farthest from you. Large hands raised and come clasped together, and you hear the loud cracking of knuckles. Their face covered in a shaggy beard, long black hair tied into a braid, and 2 large tusks rise from his lower lip. You see what appears to be a white-haired drow on your right. They don't even look up at you as the door shuts, and you see that they sit there muttering to themselves and scratching their head. You see their face is riddled with red spots. In the middle of the room, you see what appears to be a large, almost lumpish form of some kind of fungus. But it has legs. You see its cap scrunched down before pushing upwards, and small jets of what must be spores emerge from it and flitter about the space before disappearing. Next to them sits a plump, pale, violet Lokatha. Fish person, for those that don't know. They sit cross-legged near the middle of the room and appear to be in deep meditation. You hear low humming coming from this cross-legged form. Near what appears to be that orc that stands in the back, you barely make out the forms of 2 gnomish figures, also bearing that purplish-gray skin that you see of the other one before you. A male and female, they are peering around at the lot of you before ducking their heads back, and you hear their snickering. And they also bear very similar resemblances. As you are kind of getting your bearings, that small, kind of bespeckled figure looks very almost similar to you, Sephel, except they have a longer, drooping mustache, and they have those white eyes. They come up to you. They stand about 3 3.25 feet tall. They come up to you, and the 3 of you, and they're like, "Good evening. I'm Bupido. Welcome to Velkenvelv. I see you've been dragged down here by our capturer, Mistress Ilvara. Did you have a nice trip?"
Not at all. It's very brusque.
"That's very unfortunate. Well, let me show you to your cellmates. And they turn. Let's see. Andrew, Brendan, and Sam, you know what? All three of you, give me a nature or arcana check, whatever you guys are better with here.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Gonna go ahead and drop some arcana. All right. That is a 15 arcana.
Okay.
I have a dirty 20 nature.
Nice.
15 Arcana.
Okay. Andrew, you recognize what Bupido is. He is what you have heard of referred to as a Darrow or Dero. They are a deformed, almost sub-race of Duragar or Draugr, or however you say it. How do you pronounce it, Brendan?
I believe it is Durgar.
Durgar? Okay. These kind of deep dwarves, they're a very magically perverted subrace of them. Some of your order had done particular dealings with them long in the past, and so you've read a couple records on them. They were twisted for an extremely long period of time by illithids centuries and centuries ago. And you know, they're never seen above the Underdark, essentially. They're very reclusive, kind of secretive people. So Bupido kind of starts beginning to lead you around the room, and he first walks up to that kind of blue-furred creature and goes, yes, this is your first cellmate here. Come introduce yourself. This large furred creature, they probably stand between 7 and 8 feet tall. Compared to the ones that you'd seen before, because he also appears to be the same type of creature, he actually walks very upright, one arm held in front of him and one arm crossed behind him. And he goes, "Hey, yes, good to see you all. I'm Prince Derendil. You might have heard of me. I ruled over the kingdom of Nelrinden Vane in the High Forest. And don't believe what you see here. And he leans in close to you. I'm actually of the High Elves. I've been cursed horribly by these people. But
Oh
but
wow, that's
welcome to
unfortunate.
Zen. It's very unfortunate. I desperately wish to be free of these horrible bindings and of this curse. I must return to my people.
That sounds very important.
It is.
How did a prince end up here?
Well, I was walking amongst the forest castle grounds, viewing everything that I owned and could touch. And as I was returning to my palace that night, something odd kind of rustled amongst the garden, and I went to investigate, and, well, something bonked me up on the head, and when I awoke, I was here, and in this horrible furred form.
Wow. That's like what happened to me, but without the fur.
Yes, you consider yourself quite lucky. I'm tied in amongst those gods awful Quaggoth in the other rooms.
Sure.
And what are your names?
I'm Indigo.
Lara, pleasure to meet you, Your Highness.
The whole time he was talking, Sephel was kind of looking over him. What's the read I get on this guy? Is he bullshitting? Does he seem
Make
like a
an insight
bullshitter?
check.
Okay.
Make it that inside check.
Not good at it, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
Okay. All right. 16.
He appears to be telling you the God's awful truth. You are listening to what he says, and it's entirely sincere. You believe that this was some kind of high elven prince that got beaten by these drows and somehow has been cursed into this quaggoth form.
A transformation of this nature is quite disturbing. You may
True
call me
is.
Sephel, if
Thank
you
you,
must call me anything.
Thank you, Sephel, for understanding my great pain down here. Finally, someone amongst you heathens that gets it. He calls out to the others in the room, and you just hear like a general like groan, because they probably all heard it a dozen times, all these other figures in here. And Bupido chimes in.
Yes, well, let's introduce you to some of the others.
And before he even really gets a chance to lead you guys along, that red-haired dwarven figure kind of comes up to you guys, and she holds out a thick and well calloused hand. She goes, "Eldith Fildrun, here at your service."
Oh, well, it's nice to meet you.
It's wonderful to meet you too. I just heard a little bit of your story. It sounds like you've been pretty well bamboozled as well and taken by these god-awful drow.
Yeah, I got bonked on the head, and here I am. 1 minute you're counting frogs and pond lilies, and now this.
Is that intended to be a metaphor, or was that actually what you were doing?
No, field research. That's how it's done.
Well, welcome to Velkenven. It's a pretty horrible place. Don't mind too much of the lot in here. We're all appearing to be a little bit crazy. But if you're needing a good shoulder to lean on and show you about the place, I'm happy to help you.
That's quite kind of you. May I ask, how long has everyone been down here?
Oh, jeez, I'm not entirely sure. I've been here probably 3 weeks or so. It's been a while. I've been... And she kind of grows quiet. I've been trying to find a way out of here, but just, these drow have it pretty well locked down.
It seems that you all have the numbers. Has no one tried a heavy-handed approach?
That small, purple-skinned, gnomish figure with that large hooped earring comes in and he goes,
Oh yeah, of course, some of us have tried. None have made it that far, though. Name's Jimjar, pleasure to meet you. It's Lara, isn't it? It's a pleasure.
and he comes up and he, like, takes your hand, he shakes it.
And, you're Indigo, right? I have a
Good thing with names. And he comes up to you, Sephel, pleasure, and he, like, slaps your hand as almost like a low 5. And he goes,
Yeah,
no.
he pulls his hand backwards. Like, almost shakes it like he was insulted to be touched by this thing.
He's like, oh, sorry, friend, just trying to be friendly, no need to get upset with me. Just, well, cellmates around here. It's nothing personal. You gotta loosen up a little bit. No, listen, Lara. See, a lot of people have tried, but they've all been, and he, like, does that motion of his thumb drawing across the neck. If you know what I mean.
Oh, sure. Yes. I can see that many here have been through hardships, certainly. Perhaps we can assist.
Yeah.
Is there anyone here who is, not part of the team, so to speak?
Well, there's Ront back there. He's a big burly orc. He'll just between all of us, he'll probably try to shake you down for whatever you might be able to hide from the drow. But don't worry about him too much. You give him a good slap, or you bark right back, he'll back off. Don't you worry about him. Otherwise, now everybody appears to be quite all right. Though Shusha, and he points to the Lokatha, he's like, if you need any help doing anything, especially amongst the chores that these drows have you doing around here, he won't do it. He thinks he's some kind of a awakened sage or something that's gonna help his people.
Oh, wow, another scholar? What are the chances?
I wouldn't. Well, I wouldn't really say he's a scholar. He feels like he has some kind of connection to some kind of otherworldly knowledge. But and then
Wow!
yeah, it's all right. But over there in the corner, and he's pointing to the drow. He goes, that's Sarith. He's a bit of a quiet one. He does what he does. Probably one of the more quieter folks around here. And then you got Topsy and Turvy over there, and he points to the two other gnomes in the far corner that are staring at you guys, but like kind of minding their own business. A little bit, like they turn away and they talk to each other, and it looks like they start arguing all of a sudden, and they start like punching and kicking each other and like scrabbling on the floor before like pushing each other away from each other and then huffing and sitting down. Excuse me. Yeah, Topsy and Turvy, they're odd, but they're good gnomes. And then you see that weird two-legged mushroom start like waddling amongst you guys, and you see its mushroom cap sink down, and then poof, spores come out, and then all of a sudden, all of you hear inside your head, "Hi, I'm Stool."
Wow!
Oh no!
This is amazing! Hello, Stool. I'm Indigo.
Hi, Indigo. It's nice to meet you.
Man, I sure wish I had my book. I'd love to interview you. You're the first fungus I've ever talked to.
Well, I guess you've never really been down here before. Fungus is a little rude, though. I prefer, we're usually called myconids.
I'm so sorry. Yes, myconid. Of course, I'm new down here. Also, where's here?
Well, that's a tough one. Some of the other ones that actually talk to me say that this is someplace called Falconbelt. I don't really know what that means, though. I'm just trying to get back to the Grove.
The Grove. That sounds great.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's where all my friends are, and we take care of the shrooms there, and all the others, and then we kind of have communal nights together, and we talk with the mother. It's pretty cool.
Wow, I'd love to go there.
Oh, well, if we ever get out of here, I'll happily show you.
Oh, that would be neat.
At this point,
So, when do we check out?
someone.
Go ahead, Sam.
At this point, I just wanted to say while this is happening, when Jim Jaw mentioned the orc being potentially aggressive, Lara is standing in such a way as to keep an eye on the orc, but she's still listening in. So I just wanted to say that she's keeping an eye on that.
Sure, yeah. No, he's leaning against one of the back walls, his large arms crossed in front of his chest, kind of giving an imposing look here. So what are you thinking? Is there anything you guys want to do as you're kind of meeting you've now met like pretty much all of your cellmates?
Oh, are you already planning for an escape?
Yes.
I have no intention of staying here longer than I need to.
That sounds wonderful. If you wouldn't mind another member of your small merry crew, I would like to join in.
I think we'll need all the help we can get.
I believe Lara had a plan for
Yeah.
how to start planning anyway. Lara, would you like to discuss with Bupido the information that we can gather?
Bupido, yes, we'd like to have your help. You've been taken out of this cell before. Can you draw us what you remember? Perhaps where you've turned and how many steps you think it was, and anything you could tell us about how to get around?
I can certainly try my best.
And he like in the dust, in the dirt of this cave, he sets about you see he kind of like squats in with like using his toes and his fingers. He starts kind of drawing out. He says,
"From here, there is a turn to the right, and you descend downwards. I don't know what proceeds down those staircases because, well, we've never been brought down there. Across the bridge leads to a rather nice little room that some of the guards watch us from. It's nothing too precious. Usually 2 or 3 guards sit in there every day watching us. They keep a small amount of equipment nearby. They don't seem to pay us too much mind, though. Sometimes they have
How
us
often do you
clean
get-
the post.
How often do you get assigned there? Is it common?
It's common enough that we either pass through there for other chores, or we're dragged there to do different tasks. Some days we empty the chamber pots, some days we bring them water barrels from the falls. It's really no matter. There's usually one crew that is brought out every day or so, every number of hours when the drow get bored.
Lara, would you mind if I asked a question?
No, please.
To your knowledge, Bupido, are there any patterns of which they take prisoners or consistent tasks that they give to the same people?
Not necessarily. Any way that they can make the tasks more difficult or cruel for their own entertainment, they'll do it. In fact, I would say some time ago, not really well kept around here, if you may have noticed, they had the twins there in the back try to move a number of large water barrels to Mistress Ilvara's rooms, I believe it was. And they just kept adding stones atop the barrels. They didn't allow them to remove them and whipped them to make them move it. So no patterns other than unmatched cruelty.
Well, I think we need to get out of here. This is not great.
It most certainly isn't.
Can I go over and take a look at what kind of like lock is on the door? Or
Yeah,
like how
absolutely.
the door opens?
So you go over and you're taking a look at it. So you go over to investigate the door. You see that it is a large barred wall with a smaller gate or door kind of inset within it. You see what looks like a pretty decent lock sitting in there. You're actually pretty good with thieves' tools, if I remember from building your character, right?
Yep.
Make me a that's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. I would say some kind of do either a dexterity check or an intelligence check for me. Just straight up those.
Alright, and that will be a dexterity. And that is a 4.
Okay. Yeah, you think this is a pretty complicated lock. You've definitely never picked something of its caliber before.
Alright, Indigo will kind of like clock that and come back over. I mean, ideally we could, steal a few things if we got to go out on chores. We just have to be careful not to get caught. A key would really be kind of the best thing, but...
Perhaps those guards that,
That might be
watch.
a higher risk.
Yeah, perhaps those guards have keys, Bapito? Have you seen keys on those guards?
I have noticed that a large amount of them do carry keys. They do all swap duties as guards, so I would assume they all have the means of entering our cell.
Bupido, I have unfortunately noticed a lacking of my magical abilities, which is most of my usefulness. Have you or anyone in here experienced a similar phenomenon? And do you know if it is localized or if there is some source that may be meddled with?
I'm afraid I don't know anything about a source, but we have noticed that there appears to be some type of anti-magic field or something presiding well over this cell. I will warn you, though, if you do try outside the cell and you are caught, they will punish you quite severely if you're caught. There was another fellow here who fancied himself able to escape rather quickly on his own with magic. He went out during one of our chores and found himself fed to the spiders.
But, to your knowledge, this is localized to the cell then, and not the entirety of the prison.
He starts nodding.
Yes, as far as I can tell, it is just within the cell, for this is the largest amount of time that we can go unclosely observed.
Then perhaps the main leg of our escape must be done without our abilities. However, if we manage the feat of all getting out of this cell, it would be quite useful to have all of our tools to use.
My best advice is to keep an eye out should you be taken on chores. There are a few barracks and what appeared to be even an armory, which I was not brought into for a chore. They could be stored any belongings there, or they might be kept more closely with Mistress Ilvara herself.
Don't take this the wrong way, Sephel, but with your looks, perhaps they would trust you the most on certain jobs. You just seem to be a little bit more wise and you know, just different looking than yes, old.
You're old as fuck, man.
You are referring to these hella crow's feet.
Jim Jar yells from across the cell. That bitch old.
I mean, yeah, I mean no disrespect, of course.
There is none taken. I'm very well accustomed to my physical state. But if the theme is unmatched cruelty, I doubt I will be given preference. I will most likely be given tasks that will push my physical abilities far beyond my corporeal capabilities.
And can I actually have you all, over the course of these next couple of days, and you guys are kind of just trying to gather your wits about your surroundings, go ahead and roll me d20s, no bonuses, just straight d20s.
Hey, there's
I
a
don't
19.
know if it's important, but
sorry.
I rolled a natural 20.
Okay.
Ooh.
19, nat 20.
I don't know if that's helpful at all in this particular case, but it did happen.
Hey, that's over 10.
Andrew, what you got there?
Progress. 12.
Ooh, okay. All right. So, Indigo, as you had a little bit of time in the cell before you were brought out over a course of what you would assume to be days, because the hours are long, and you guys are just, you figure you'll gather some information. It's clear that things are kind of tight here. You found the thirst. Jesus, I can't talk all of a sudden. The first thing that you found was a flawed carnelian gemstone that you would guess is worth a little bit of money.
Nice.
The second thing you find while you were performing another couple of chores is you actually find a gold coin, luckily enough.
Nice.
Lara, on one particularly brutal day, as you were hauling water barrels back and forth to all the different barracks and stalactites and rooms here, because Jim Jar was on duty with you, and he got caught trying to sip some water. You guys were pushed to the limit for hours carrying this stuff. You actually found, luckily enough, on your way back, a rusted iron bar that you could potentially use as a club. And you were able to get it back into your cell.
Cool.
Sephel, on another one of your days out, you were led to one of the... you find out that there are two barracks, one that you had done the laundry in, and there was another one next to it. As you were cleaning in there, you actually found a flint shard that's roughly about the size of a dagger.
Okay.
So over this large length of time that you guys have been here, you've rested when you can, you've been doing more chores, you've been pushed to these kind of awful jobs and limits. You've noticed that Ront pretty consistently tries to bully just about everybody. The other things you notice that he particularly hates Eldith, that redheaded dwarf, and that he also seems to, him and Darendil, that elven Quaggoth figure, also tend to avoid each other, because you can see that there is some kind of beef between the two of them, and like they're both on the edge of full on fighting each other. But you notice that he's not, if he does have anything, he must keep it immediately on his person. The other thing you've noticed over this period of time is that he's not very sneaky. He, for lack of a better word, he's pretty fucking dumb. You know, he, you watched him one time try to like pick up a rock, but the rock was the size of like his head, and the drow like beat the fucking shit out of him because he thought he was going to be able to like get away with that rock. So you think if he has anything, it's probably not worth anything. So yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
I think we need to make an important decision, which is, when we get out of this cell, which will be soon, who out of these people do we think is worth it to take with us, and who do we think is best to leave behind?
Oh, I mean, it'd be nice if everyone could come. It'd be more fun that way.
All right, Lara, who do you think would be best to take with us?
In this moment, I am loath to lead anyone behind in the cell, and I'm going to have to agree with Indigo on this one.
Nice.
Sephel just starts to think to himself. Then he's sort of like dodgeball coach, just looking at everybody, like eyes glazing over every single person for a couple seconds, and is starting to calculate probabilities of survival depending on who comes with.
Is that something you really want to do? Because I'll make you roll on it if you want.
No. I'm not trying to judge each one's character, like, mechanically.
Mm-hmm.
Sephel is just very antsy about the idea of all of these people staging a successful prison break, and is just starting the process of analyzing options.
Yeah.
I think where I'm at, Sephel, is that perhaps all we need to do is help them leave the cell, and then they go their way and are a potential distraction, and we've done our part to help them get free.
Then we are of similar mind. I did not mean necessarily leave people locked in the cell. I just meant who comes further with us and who goes their own way.
Yes,
Can I
think-
come with you?
That's Stool.
Yes.
You look
Of
up
course
and
you
you
can
see
come
Stool
with us, Stool.
just like sitting there squirting his little spores, and he's like, "Can I come? I don't really want to stay here."
Of course.
I'm not
How else
going
are we
to
gonna
lie.
get to the grove?
I kind of thought he was a coffee table. I thought it was a new installation. I apologize.
It's okay. Ron tries to sit on me often.
Sephel, I do want to have the best chance here, and Lara will start to whisper. I worry that Stool isn't the defense offense that we need.
Wow. That was rude. I'm sorry I don't seem physically capable.
And he actually just like waddles away. And here's the thing you've noticed:
Stool,
he
come
doesn't have a mouth. You hear it in your head, his voice. So
Yeah,
clearly
this has
it
all
was
been
some kind of-
telepathic. He can probably read thoughts.
yeah, so he's just like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and he just like waddles away.
Just for the best.
You just told the 3-year-old kid that he sucks. Congratulations.
Sephel started it.
Way to go!
It's like
Way to kick him! Way to kick him while he's down.
it's like no, Timmy, your drawing is garbage. It's not gonna end up on the fridge.
Of course,
All right,
child.
here's
we're
what
gonna
I'll
leave
say.
you with the people that will
Stool-
obviously kill you.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Well, I just think Stool can come if it can keep up. You have to keep up.
You hear the
I
little
also
as Stool comes back. Yeah, I can keep up. I can show you to the Night Grove. I promise. Please take me with you. I'll be helpful in every way I possibly can.
Look how fast they are.
Look at me go.
Congratulations, we've adopted Mort.
He starts running and he trips over a fucking rock and he's like, "Can someone pick me up, please? Can someone?"
He's not
It's
coming.
okay.
He's
And
not.
you see it
I can't.
I will pick him up.
Okay, you go over and pick him up and he's like,
Thanks, Indigo. I appreciate that.
Indigo, he's your
we're going to
responsibility.
die in this cell.
Yeah.
You're my best
So my
friend, Indigo.
thought, because Sephel is getting
You're my best
anxious
friend.
and is trying to get analytical and is just impatient.
Mhm.
So my first thought is, well, I guess Lara, did you communicate the read that you got on Ront when you were kind of checking him out?
Yeah, I think that was a group check. Was that right? I don't remember if it was me or not. But I would have shared everything that I knew.
Oh, it was you guys were talking about the insight when you guys were looking at him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we share everything.
Yeah, you
Yes.
honestly, after looking at all these people here, after the past couple of days and talking with a few of them, your loosest cannons that you can reckon is probably Ront and Darendil. And you guys are talking about this, and like Stool's actually super forthcoming because out of all the prisoners here, he's the only one they don't make do tasks because there's fucking nothing that he can do. Like, he doesn't have arms.
Why do they have him? Like,
Do you ask?
what use is he?
You can ask.
I mean, I definitely think it. And I'm pretty sure he can. That's just as relevant as asking with him.
Okay, so you're like getting all tactical and stuff, and Stool's like, yeah. So your biggest loose cannon here is Ront, and I just kind of got swept up with a band of them. They just kind of like picked me up and were like, we're gonna chop them into furniture. Hate myconoids. And then I started talking in their minds, and they just kind of threw me in here. And from what I'm hearing, they're just waiting on a transport from Menzo Zabarin to come here and take us so that we can be slaves or sacrifices in the big city.
Well, we need to leave before that happens.
Yeah, probably.
I would say we should leave tonight. If we
They
believe we
would
are prepared.
burn me. You don't
Or-
I
want
agree.
them to burn me, Indigo. I just did it in a weird voice.
Of course not. You're my best friend. I'm gonna protect you. All right, so let's get out of here today. All we gotta do is get through this lock, and we're on it.
We may not need to. Who is out of hopefully just present company? Who would be the most charismatic and instigative?
If you need me to start a commotion and get the guards' attention, I could do that.
I don't even believe you would need to. You just simply need to push Ront and Darendel in the proper direction, and they will do it for us.
That's a good idea. To be clear, Darendel is the prince, yes?
Yeah, the elven
Are we-
prince that says he was polymorphed into a Quaggoth.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, high elf cursed into Quaggoth form. So yeah. And from your insight check, it seems like they have some beef.
Yeah.
And they're right on that precipice of
Okay.
starting a fight anyway. So I'm thinking they
I
just
like
need
that.
a nudge in that direction.
Okay. I will. I think this is a great idea. And I will stand closer to Darendel. And when we're ready, you can just give me a nod, and I will know to give a shove into Ron.
Maybe not a physical shove.
Perhaps a
I was
trick.
thinking perhaps of
Subtle.
I was thinking more along the lines of gossip, so that his anger is properly directed, and he does not swing at you. Perhaps simply planting in his mind that something was said of him that was less than favorable.
Now that I can do. This is why you're the smart one, Sephel.
You old
Once
man.
that is done, we assume that guards will, or at least a guard will charge the room to break up the fight.
Mhm.
Hopefully. If all guards have keys,
Mhm.
who amongst, perhaps not us, but company we think is worth taking, might be able to subdue a guard or sweep the keys?
DM, have we got a feel that any of the NPCs that we've sort of been leaning into have a more dexterous, thiefy manner? I know we've been talking a lot to Bupido. What is
Yeah.
he
Mhm.
sort of? What's his
Jim Jar,
skill set?
maybe?
Yeah, out of the people that you've most talked to, which would be Bupido, Jimjar, you've talked a little bit to Darendelle, you talked a little bit to Eldith. You still haven't really talked to those two gnome twins. Shushar, you've talked to a little bit, but you...
Topsy and turvy.
Yep. Shushar is a fat, happy Koatoa. You know, in your talks, you clearly learned that he's a pacifist and, you know, doesn't really have any desires to escape. Out of all the people here that you've seen, you would think Jimjar, the two twins, and a little bit of Bupido, but more so Jimjar and the twins seem to be the most kind of dexterous of the group. They seem to get around pretty easily. The only thing that you notice is that Jimjar has this particular inclination to want to try and bet on everything. And like, as you guys have got to know him, like, you guys have gone out on a couple of cleaning jobs or like moving stuff or like whatever, and the whole time he's like, oh yeah, I bet I could move no, I don't know, 5 more rocks than you. I'll bet you gold on it. And you're like, what the fuck, Jimjar? Like, I don't even have gold. And you see he like dips into like one of the folds of his cloth and he pulls out like 5 gold coins, and he's just like, well, I got the gold. Next time you find one, it's coming to me, though. All right? I'll bet you. And he does it with everyone. It's just unstoppable. He wants to do anything. He's like, you guys are sitting in the cell. He's like, hey, you want to flick some stones? If you land on this particular side, I'll let you win all of my stones. How about that? And everybody kind of hates him for it. But the quietest and the most stealthy that you would think would probably be Topsy and Turvy.
That is actually a habit of Jimjar that Sephel believes might actually be manipulable.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'd be happy to wager a gold coin he can't take a key off a guard.
Oh.
My thoughts exactly.
Oh,
I love that.
We,
So we thinking that
right.
we... Yeah.
So-
No, go ahead, Sephel.
Yeah, Sephel will kind of continue the plan. Like, I imagine it's like full Prison Break movie, like he's seeing it in real time going down. Like, we flash, the camera zooms as Lara walks over to Darendelle and whispers something in his ear. Darendelle stands up all fucking pissy, walks over to Ront and just socks him right across the jaw. They start fighting. Drow guards, or however many guards, come in while Indigo sort of slips a gold coin out of his pocket and just flashes it really quick to show Jimjar, and sort of nods in the direction of the guard while Jimjar comes up behind, swipes the key as the guards are sort of pushing Ront and Darendelle away from each other. And as the guards leave, we move to our next steps. That's all I have for right now. But I think it's a solid start.
The plan's coming
Okay.
together.
Okay.
Role playing 20 intelligence. It's hard, y'all.
Okay. All right. So, when do you guys want to enact this plan?
At this point, once it has been all planned out, I imagine Indigo goes over and is like whispering to Jimjar. Lara is stationed over by Darendelle.
Yep.
Sephel will just kind of be sitting against a wall. Let's say this wall.
Yeah, go ahead and
here
move yourselves around the map
near.
a little bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
I don't want
would
to be
heavily encourage it.
suspiciously near the door.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to seem like I am waiting for the door to open, but I'm just going to be at this wall next to the drow, seeming like I want to make it look like I'm just hopelessly trying to get him to talk to me.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I will...
Lara will
and this
wait.
is cool because I can kind of see everybody.
Perfect. Yeah, Lara's going to wait for... she's going to just kind of lean against the wall next to Darendelle and wait for, like, a nod from Indigo indicating that Jimjar has accepted the deal, and then she's going to start her part.
Okay. All right, Indigo. So you approach Jim Jar. You can see he's playing a game of skipping stones in a small circle on his own.
Hey, Jim Jar, you want to play a more interesting game?
Oh yeah. What you got? What you got in mind? Yeah. What you got in mind?
I'm gonna have the coin like palmed, and I'm gonna like flash it to him. Bet you can't steal a guard's key.
Oh, I see. That's pretty tricky right there. Yeah, it's pretty tricky right there, Indigo. Oh, all right. You trying to get a little prison break going on here? Yeah, no. That sounds pretty good. Listen here, Indigo.
Yeah.
What you gonna do when I get this key? Do we all get out of this? Because that's a lot of work and a lot of risk on my part.
Oh, Jim Jar, we're all getting out of here.
Are you lying to him, or are you like dead serious?
Indigo actually thinks that everyone's getting out of here.
Okay, all right. Yeah, he like looks at you. His eyes grow a little bit wide as he's like, "Oh shit, you serious, kid? All right, okay. You know what? Yeah, it sounds pretty good. You got but shit. How are we gonna get in position for me to get a key? That's the thing. I might need some kind of distraction though.
Oh, don't worry, it's taken care of. And I'll slowly turn around to Lara and give her a nod.
Yeah, Lara
go down.
sees the nod, and she's gonna give a nod back, like a little like chin dip, and then she will turn to Prince Darendil and my liege, Prince Darendil.
Hey, yes, my lady. How may I help you?
I have not the best of news, unfortunately. It seems that there is a coup. I know. It seems that there is a coup being staged, and it has taken me some time to figure out who is the leader of the efforts, but it seems that Ront believes himself to be the true leader of your people, and he's been telling everyone that you're a fraud. And it seems like the people are on his side.
You just see Darren lose his fucking mind. You see, like, his eyes instantly grow bloodshot. His mouth just starts foaming. He instantly just, like, turns into this full Quaggoth beast. And he's just like, and he just, like, charges on all fours across this room, slams into Ron, and they go crashing into the wall. And this shit gets wild, far more than you probably thought it would. Darendil is, like, biting into Ron's neck. Ron is confused as fuck, but instantly just starts punching Darendil in the ribs. You actually hear, like, breaking, and Darendil just, like, rips a huge chunk out of Ron's neck, and they are just hacking at each other. Ron takes Darendil, rips him off of his chest, slams him into the wall, and he's, like, beating him again and again and again. Darendil gets his back legs up in between them and just, like, starts doing that cat thing with their back legs and just starts raking into Ron's stomach. And you can see it just tearing flesh. It's fucking awful. On top of that,
Sephel is gonna run to the barred door and be like, "Gods, please! They're going to kill each other. They're going to kill us all, please!"
You actually hear, like, a commotion coming from the guard tower, and you actually hear a horn, and another one a little ways away being sounded, and you just hear, like, you can hear the creaking of the bridges, and these people are you see the drow, they're running. A ton of them are coming. In the meantime, you see, like, Ront's nose has been fucking, like, bitten in half. Darendil, one of his ears has been ripped off, and, like, you can see that one of his arms is broken, but he's just, like, biting into Ron's thighs. And Ron, like a couple of his tusks are actually like broken off, and you can see he like grabs one from the floor and is stabbing Darendil with it. It's bloody. You see Bupedo in like Jimjar, like, and everybody was initially in shock. You actually see Bupedo and like Jimjar like egging them on, like, yeah, get him, get that son of a bitch, you got him. Bupedo's like, yes, kill him, blood, let the blood flow. You see Stool running around his two little legs, and he's like, oh my god, no, help! And he's just his two little legs running super fast and stubby. You see Sareth actually get up, who is beside you, Sephel, and he just like crosses his arms, leans back against the wall, and he starts shaking his head like, oh god. You see Eldith actually like looks like she's trying to intervene, but you see that Ront actually tries to take a couple swings at her with his tusk. And then finally, you see actually Topsy and Turvy, they're trying to stay out of it. They're trying to like get away as far as possible from those two. And then finally, the guards arrive at the door. You see that there's at least 7 guards, and you hear like as you hear the heavy padding of quaggoths coming up as well. And you see that 4 of them join these 7 here at the door. And they all have drawn their short swords. A couple of them have crossbows out. And they unlock the door, and they kind of come in a formation, their swords pointed out at all of you, and kind of form what almost looks like a hedgehog. And they you see one of them, and it's actually one of the heads of command. You see that very young, proudful looking drow that you came to learn was Shore. He actually barks. He's like, restrain those 2 now. And you see the quaggoth charge forward, and they rip apart Ront and Darendil. Jimjar, seeing his time, looks at you, Indigo, gives a wink, and he's like, I got this. And let's see. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Oh, cock die.
Oh no.
Jimjar looks at you, gives you a wink. He's like, I got this. My time to shine. And he starts making his way towards the drow. You see a lot of them are facing towards the commotion. You see the Quaggoth are pretty quickly wrestling apart both Ront and Darendil. And you watch as Jimjar actually gets up behind Shore, the captain of these drow here in this outpost. And he actually goes and he manages to get the key. You watch it happen. And as he starts to like back away, you watch as Shore whips around and with his short sword actually cuts off Jimjar's hands and then grabs him by the throat and picks him up, and he's like, I felt you grabbing for my keys. You think you're swift, thief. Your time has come. The 3 of you have earned your just reward. And the Quaggoth start dragging Ront, Darendil, and Shore, still holding Jimjar by the throat. He's clutching his wounded arm. The hand still on the ground with the key. You see one of the other drow pick it up, and they drag all 3 of them out. The rest of them, crossbows trained and swords out at all of you. They close the gate, and they walk those 3 up to the edges. And Shore turns back to all of you. I am like Topsy and Turvy are at the front of the bars. They're like pressing their faces through. You see Stool up to the front. And he's like, oh no, this is awful. I don't know what's happening. You see Eldith is like, oh, this is just awful. And Shore turns to you all and he says, let this be a reminder that any untoward actions such as this, ruining yourselves so that you might not be served for a greater purpose in the great webbed city, you will be punished. For the severity of their crimes, escape, dismembering, and untimely unrest. It's feeding time. And he holds Jim Jar off over the ledge and lets go of him. And you see him fall just... And you actually see this large shadowy form drop from the ceiling behind the ledge, just... And you see that there's a silver strand that comes down from the ceiling. You see it was loose, almost like a coil going, and then it goes taunt. And a moment later, you see this giant spider coming up, Jim Jar in its talons, and starts spinning him up into a web, and then spits him back out. Shore turns to both Raunt and Darendil, goes, "Toss them. She hasn't eaten in a while." And the drow and the Quaggoth throw them off the edge. I feel somewhat responsible. And the giant spider descends to wrap them up in its clutches.
Almost.
And that's where we'll leave it this week.
That's not exactly how I pictured it going.
Almost went to plan.
Well, hey there, new listener of the Madness Table. Thanks so much for checking out episode 1. We are just having a blast making the podcast. As I record this, we are well into the 50s in terms of episode numbers. It's been such a journey so far, so we hope you consider listening. We've come a long way since episode 1, so please join us as we make our way through the Underdark. If you're loving the content, please consider giving a 5-star review and whatever podcatcher you're currently listening. It helps us grow, helps us get new listeners, helps us spread the word about the podcast. You can find all of our social media and Discord links at linktree.com/themadnesstable. That's where we'll be posting all of our episode drops, notifications, our bonus content when it comes out, and any other fun stuff that we want to post about. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for giving us a try, and we'll see you next time. When?
Madness